Welcome back to The Watch. And in this watch specifically, we're talking about that The Wheel of Time will never be Game of Thrones. That's the comparison. Everyone's trying to, like... I either see people making a comparison, like there's some validity to make that this is somehow approaching Game of Thrones, which it's not.
Well, it's approaching the final season of Game of Thrones.
Oh, maybe. Maybe.
Very early, though.
Or people really wanting it to be the Game of Thrones, telling themselves that it's something that it's just not. And I've also seen signs in the show itself of them mimicking certain Game of Thrones elements and failing drastically at it. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. And on top of that, we're going to also, because this is like further discussion, after our big, deep dive reviews, we like to then just talk about either what's being discussed in the community about the episode or the subject, topic, but also interact with you guys, our viewers, and read out some of the comments. And we usually just go by what's top comment down and interact and react, respond directly to those comments that come up. Okay, so... Game of Thrones versus Wheel of Time.
That's like...
I think the best comparison is it's like Harry Potter and Twilight. When that came out, and they're like, it's like Harry Potter. It's like not.
It's not at all.
And I think that's the same thing with Wheel of Time. It's like, okay, it's fantasy.
That's the kind of it. It's like that's the connection. And Wheel of Time, I say it's perfectly fine to consider it a type of medieval fantasy, but it is nowhere near as medieval as Game of Thrones.
No.
Game of Thrones really embraces certain medieval tropes. Some not realistic, some are, but it's very much like inspired from many historical things.
Because Game of Thrones wasn't woke. This is.
Well, that's a big difference as well. Like, there's a reason why Game of Thrones became so successful, and people are trying to inflate the supposed success of Wheel of Time, the series, TV show at the moment, far more than what it is. And, all right, so we're going to compare it to Game of Thrones in a number of things. First off, let's just compare the success.
Well, to compare success, one of them, and I'm not going to name which one, would have to be slightly successful.
That's the thing. And so one of the big signs that Wheel of Time, the TV show, is not getting near the traction or interest, broad interest, that Game of Thrones does, is how many YouTubers are talking about this that aren't already fans of the book or directly in that area reviewing fantasy or anything like that. I mean, has there been any mention, even a blip on the radar, from like, I don't know, Jeremy Jahns or what's the other reviewer?
Mexican fella?
No.
Angry Joe.
Angry Joe.
Yeah,
not
he's
a blip
Mexican,
on it.
I just said.
Yeah, I know. The other one, it's he's the other reviewer, but he's a bit more bland.
Get Stuckman.
Yeah. So Chris Stuckman, no mention. So all the major kind of media reviewers and things haven't even glanced. It doesn't look like they've glanced at Wheel of Time. Maybe they're waiting for the season to be done, perhaps. But this is the other big difference between, say, Game of Thrones and Wheel of Time. Game of Thrones was so good, you saw reviews coming out episode by episode, conversation happening. Like, after every single major, Game of Thrones episode drop, it was like a wildfire of videos being made on the subject.
Yeah, people talk about it all the time.
There's barely anything like that, except for our dedicated communities.
And us. Well... we are our dedicated. Yeah, whatever. What you said.
And see, those are some of the big names, but even a lot of the other names, and a lot of the ones that I watch, so we're talking about, say, Nerdrotic, EFAP, Geeks and Gamers. These are all great channels like Clownfish TV.
Jeremy from the Quartering.
Even the Quartering talks about, show reviews now and then and stuff. And there's a whole, sorry if I don't mention everyone, but there's heaps of them out there, okay?
Yeah.
And especially the ones that are trying to push back against the woke stuff. And Wheel of Time is massively agenda-driven, drowning in woke agenda, yet it's nowhere near big enough for them to even bother glancing at it.
Sad.
So Wheel of Time is only doing really well for, honestly, like, either... the type of fans that just want more content. Consume content, bring us more content. Okay, they're not looking at it critically. They just love it that it's Wheel of Time. If it's just Wheel of Time, bring it. And because I love Wheel of Time, I'm gonna love this because it has the name on it. Doesn't matter if it butchers or betrays or desecrates the source material. It's just more Wheel of Time, and I can't help but love Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Right? Very much the over, obsessed Star Wars fan, where Disney can just give them crap with a bow tied around it called Star Wars, and they love it, right?
Nom nom nom
Nom
nom
nom nom nom.
Chocolate sprinkle.
And they're not being properly critical about just because they're... What type of fan would you call these? Like obsessive, like fans that just love it so much they'll even accept crap.
Well, they're just they're consumers.
And consumers.
Consumers. Emphasis on.
So they're watching Wheel of Time a lot. And then there are, the types of people who are loving the show, I see in two categories. That type of fan, okay? Then these aren't people who like the show. There's the actual people who love the source material and just can't stand it, right? That's being betrayed. But in terms of people liking the show, there's that. And then there's people who are not familiar with Wheel of Time, and they don't, I don't know, they just like it because it's fantasy schlock.
Yeah. There's some people who their standards for content is just so low. Like, seriously... There's this guy on YouTube called Shadowversity.
Don't listen to him. It's a lost cause.
No, but think about it, right? Batwoman. All the CW superhero shows, no offense to people who like that, but they're garbage.
Oh, they're horrible.
Awful.
Like, objective trash,
yeah.
Right? And then there is the other type of fans who will support and love it no matter what because it's an ally. It's preaching the message.
It's an ally.
It's a great show, not because of the right... And seriously... for some reason, it's weird, okay? In the fantasy genre, the literary fantasy genre, there seems to be far more of the woke crowd on board with it and are loving Wheel of Time because it's just got the message in it. And there's a high representation in the fantasy genre than, say, comic books now, gaming community.
Well, I mean, to be fair, liberals already live in a fantasy world, so... I mean, look at D&D. They're all in D&D. They're all into, all the fantasy stuff. It's a big thing for them.
So, I was perusing good old White Cloaks. I'm checking it every day just to see what's getting posted on there. It's where the best Wheel of Time discussion is happening online. And so, I was perusing White Cloaks here, and someone had shared an article where, and it was, I'm paraphrasing, can't remember exactly, but the exact message of what the headline was saying was that this is a phenomenal show and it's going to be the next Game of Thrones because it has proper LGBT representation and the main character is gay. It's a great show.
The main character is gay.
Their qualification of a great show... Yeah, they called Moraine the main character.
There you go, yeah.
Gee, tells you something about the nature of this
maybe they're talking about Rand.
No, they had a picture of Moraine there, right? But they literally gauge the quality of the show based on its representation. Not the quality of writing, not the quality of characters, its consistency, how engaging or entertaining it is. It was good because it had the message.
Yep.
How depressing is that? That's their standard of a good show. And because it's got the message, they're really trying to make this out to be the greatest show under the sun, when it's not. And if this is the first time you're coming to Night's Watch to see this discussion on the comparison between Wheel of Time and Game of Thrones, go watch our episode-by-episode breakdowns, okay? Chuck them on when you're driving, listen to it like a podcast, okay? We go in deep, and you'll see that we gave the show the benefit of the doubt. There were some good things in the early episodes. There were some big problems. But by episode 5 and now episode 5 and 6, it's made the show almost irredeemably bad.
The one redeeming factor for it is that I called it. Way in
Is it you were right, Oz? That
you
was
keep
the whole...
saying
that.
I keep saying that.
Hear you.
Why are you angry about that? I was right. I was.
Yeah, but you said it already. You can move on.
Says you. You get one if you're right.
Bull crap! I mentioned it once and then that's it. And I only have to bring it up again when I'm trying to shut you down on something.
Well, I don't say you're wrong, Shad. Ha ha ha. I mean, I kind of do. Only once though.
You do all the time. All the time.
How many predictions have I made? I've been 100% right about, and I've just completely called it way ahead of the curve. You couldn't even see around the corner. I called it that well.
You've gotten so many things wrong though as well.
More things correct than wrong.
What about, all guns, most guns don't have safeties, Oz.
I was wrong about that. I saw it on a TV show!
Yeah, because Oz educates himself through watching TV.
That TV show...
never lies.
That TV show, by the way, predicted COVID-19.
Yeah.
It's called Utopia.
And chess is definitely 3D.
Chess is 3D.
No, it's not. See all the things I was wrong about, and he just can't. Anyway, see, look, he knows it. Look at how frustrated he is.
I'm not frustrated at all.
This is just like the face of a dying.
We're talking about Game of Thrones.
All right, so we're seeing that article is just like, oh my goodness. And because it has the message, they're so desperate for this show to be good because it's like either to push the message further or because the message legitimately makes it better than what it is when it has so many issues, but so many people are just desperate for this show to be good.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if it was actually good, we'd be seeing vastly more reaction and conversation and enthusiasm about the show than what we're seeing.
But the reason it's bad is because we've all seen it before. We all know what these particular people believe, and there's nothing confronting or really entertaining about it. Like the first episode of Game of Thrones, I saw this in a comment on a basket weaving forum. First episode of Game of Thrones established the threat in the north. Mm-hmm. It established all of the great houses and where they were in relation to each other, and that's just in the title screen. It established the conflict between the Lannisters and the Starks. It established the characters over in the east, and it had 2 counts of child murder, 1 count of incest, and a partridge in a pear tree. And like that was just the first episode.
It was
and so many boobs.
Yeah. It was real. No, like what made Game of Thrones? It came out just with a sledgehammer of good writing, like that interaction between Tyrion and Jon Snow about the whole line of
never forget what you are,
never
bastard.
Forget that was some solid good writing, and it was impactful, and it also showed that when a certain person gets pushed out a window, right? It shows that this show isn't going to pull any punches. It makes you invested. You're worried about what's going to happen.
Yep.
I mean, there were some very masterful things in that first episode. Compare that to the first episode of Wheel of Time.
But do you want to know something about Game of Thrones?
Huh.
The first episode that we saw wasn't the first episode they filmed. They shot a complete pilot before that, and HBO came to them like, do it again. Do it better. That sucked. Give us an actual good show.
Imagine if Amazon had the balls to do that.
And it's so frustrating. Now, Wheel of Time, the actual book series, had so much to work with. It did need to be a slow burn, but there are shows that can do slow burns. Look at the reaction to Dune, okay? A much slower, longer, thoughtful show that doesn't think it needs to be cracking jokes anywhere, and look at the success and popularity.
What, the movie Dune?
The movie Dune, the recent one.
Well, look at Lord of the Rings. How much content did they pack into those movies? And they had Gandalf in the beginning of the first one just going straight to Minas Tirith, not even mentioning what it is.
It frustrates me so much. There was so, if you just took the first arc in the Wheel of Time, which covers basically Emmonsfield, the attack, and them needing to leave, right? The books actually make a much longer, that takes over a much longer thing. People think you're going to need to cut a lot. Okay, but that means you can pick the best things from these events in the opening thing of the book and just have the best parts, hit after hit after hit, in every single scene in this first episode. And there is a sequence that was totally cut, not even really nodded at, or it was nodded at, but it was totally cut in the books that isn't in the show. And so Tam gets injured, and Rand needs to...
Who's Tam?
Tam, Rand's father.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't even remember him. It's so pointless. There were so many important establishing things, like Tam teaching Rand the flame in the void. This is really important focusing technique that comes up, and it would have been really interesting if they depicted the flame in the void, Rand trying to use it and stuff, learning the process. But anyway, there's this really significant scene where Rand, it takes a full chapter or 2 even, where Rand is literally just taking Tam, he's injured, on a pallet. He has to drag him on these, wooden thing that he made from their home to the 2 rivers to get help. It's a struggle. It's really difficult. He's trying to avoid Trollocs. Imagine the suspense and the way that you could have built this scene where Rand is struggling, is falling down, and then the love of his father, and he just pushes himself ah! And you could, through editing and music and emotion and tension, that could have been such an engaging scene that sets Rand up as this indomitable guy that loves his father, just pushing through to save his life, trying to avoid from Trollocs, and Tam drops a bombshell. Is it a fever state? And he says something that is a bombshell for Rand.
What does he say?
Well, it's almost like a spoiler for the show. They've cut
if it's
much.
if it's in the book and we've already passed it in terms of the show.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing is, though, they've already hinted at it, but the show has stuffed up so much in their let's make the dragon hidden and the reveal of who the dragon is. I'm so worried about. They have wanted, because there's a couple of other things that we're going to get to about the things that they changed in Wheel of Time that I can now see that they actually tried to change with the purpose of trying to make it more like Wheel of Time, and how they've failed drastically in that. And this is one of the changes. They shifted focus and character development on the Emmons Field 5, especially the 3 boys, right, to give focus in other characters and other events that they made up. That isn't in the book, and they're just...
Wow, Shad, you sound just like a hateful bigot homophobe because it's completely different to how it was, and because they're inserting all these politics. You hateful bigot homophobe. All the buzzwords, you were those.
Just because the books are great, and if you grabbed all the... Like, it's not that hard. This, like, you have this thing, we need to condense it, fine. Let's just grab the great parts, put them together, you have a friggin' awesome show, right? Yep. So going back to what Tam says in this fever state, he talks about finding a baby alone.
So he's not his dad.
Well, you don't know who he's talking about, but it puts the doubt in Rand's mind. And so this is something he's struggling with, and he's like, no. And he says it so often, is like, Tam Althor is my father, I am from the Two Rivers. It's like, I'm not believing it. And then when someone drops the bombshell that, hey Rand, you look a bit like an Aiel man. They're like, from the wastes, are really long. Do you think that would have a more emotional impact on Rand because it's connecting with some other things that were dropped?
Wow.
Here.
Well, they mentioned that he was an Aiel.
Yeah, but there's no revel. Like, he just, oh look, book, and forgets about it. It's not like this is a world-shattering revelation that is affecting who he is and who his father is. He loves Tam. And if this is saying, if this is an Aiel, what does that say about, where does he come from? It's this big conflict. And what about his father and all this? No, they don't. They care so little about it that even when they drop "you're an Aiel man," not even making the connection of Rand loving his father and who is he from and everything, is like, oh, here's a book.
Nathan,
You're about to say something. Like, okay.
No, I'm so tired, Shannon. Like, of the show, because they had all the material. They had everything.
The blueprint was there!
And it was good! People liked it!
Like, what I love is so often I have revealed changes that they made and mentioned what the book was like, and your reactions, especially Nathan's, where you see how much better the book was.
So much better. Because, like, that scene when they, like, reveal that to Rand in the show, I was like, I don't know what any of those words mean, and I care as much as Rand, where it's like, oh, book, go on. I'm like, yeah, please skip forward to, like, bits the show's actually caring about. But then you give me all that depth, I'm like, oh man, that's so much better.
Like, they could have made such a powerful, impactful explosion of a first episode that would hook so many people, and then you might, it still wouldn't be Game of Thrones, because one of the great things about, well, in terms of popularity, maybe there was the potential. Shock horror, there's a reason why the books have sold so well and are so popular. Maybe because the friggin' books are good. But no, let's change everything with books because you think you're no better. And we want to then make it actually look like and follow certain themes of the Game of Thrones because you're idiots and arrogant to the extreme. And so, look, there was possibility and potential that this could have been the next Game of Thrones in popularity. But one of the things to do that was to embrace the source material, let it rest on its own merit and trust that the books were good for a reason, and stop trying to imitate the Game of Thrones, because this is one of the big shifts that they changed in the development of season 1. And Rafe has already said this, that instead of being a story that follows individual heroic characters on their journey and stuff like that, he wanted to change the kind of tone and feel of this first season to the tone and feel that some of the books actually have in later books. Like when you get to book 4, or is it 3 or 4? I think it's 4 onwards, where there is some really interesting political intrigue and stuff happening, right? But guess what? You could have had that if you just waited until the story actually progressed there. But no, he wanted to forcibly change the tone of the first season by making it a more political struggle. And so this is, I feel, the #1 reason why they switched Camelin for Tar Valon. Because if they go to Tar Valon, suddenly they can have all the political machinations of the Aes Sedai and the interaction between Moraine and Swan, and another big reason why they changed Tarvolin with Camelin, that meant they could justify Moraine meeting Swan, and they could have their lesbian sex scene because they're so progressive that has to be feminist and all that stuff, and so we're going to force it, and we'll upend the entire story to force these elements in and ruin so much because... Okay, they got some of their political conflict in terms of Moraine standing in front of the Amelin seat and the Aes Sedai circle, I forget the full name, and they failed so much. Like, watch our breakdown of episode 6, how laughably dumb the conflict is in that scene where the Blue's job is to look for secrets and bad things happening. So Moraine is a Blue, therefore she must have known that the Trollocs were going to attack. That's how dumb the logic is.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding me? Moraine might have been doing a number of other things. No one learned about the Trollocs, but no, it's Moraine's fault. What were you doing? And then, what were you doing, Moraine? And she couldn't... Well, look, it's in the episode, but that whole sequence is so laughably dumb. The reason why the political intrigue worked in Game of Thrones, because some of it was actually clever.
And because it was still a hero story. You know?
But no, they have to force their agenda into it, and then they upend the entire story to try and make it more like Game of Thrones, and fail drastically. Like, another clear example that they don't understand what worked in Game of Thrones, how to make it work in their own thing, is where their pathetic forced injection of nudity into Wheel of Time in the bath scene with Moraine. Like, it's a conversation that there's no point why it's happening there. I mean, Littlefinger, he owns a brothel, so I don't like the nudity in Game of Thrones, but that's in the books. He owns a brothel, so if there's a conversation happening in a brothel, obviously there might be some things that walk across the screen.
I was just thinking, in the first season of Game of Thrones, Littlefinger goes on a monologue about why he does what he does. He says, "I'm not the hero. I've tried to fight the hero before, doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to F them. That's what I know. That's what I can do." He goes on this massive, awesome monologue, and he does this while two lesbians go at it. You know?
Over the top.
And it's just like, no, but here's the thing.
There was a reason to it.
Yeah.
Which was obviously to attract horny boys to watch this. But they thought that their dialogue would be too long. And
no, it's deeper than that, though, man. It's deeper than that. Because that whole scene happening suits him perfectly.
Yeah, and I do admit those women did go deep, so...
No, but... The point is that he is a brothel owner.
Yeah.
He's a pimp. And he's explaining what he does while what he does happens.
Yes.
It fit. And Aidan Gillen, great actor. He's CIA.
Too pornographic. I think you actually could have even achieved that symbolism without showing it so overtly. You could have nodded to it, or even the sound in the background could have worked to get that across. I think the writing in Game of Thrones was good enough that it could have held up just on the merit of the writing, because they did literally say that they were worried that the exposition would be too long, and so they wanted something to catch people's interest.
Yeah, and that caught people's interest.
It did. And the thing is, even though I disagree with it, it was effective. It worked for a reason.
They did it several more times.
And so they don't understand this in Wheel of Time. There's nothing attractive about this scene and nothing really appealing.
Well, that's the thing.
And there's no reason for it happening there at all. I mean, do the leaders of the Blue Aja just make a note of having important conversations while people are having baths, while there are people... Like, let's actually break this down even further, that we didn't go into the episode, right? It's a covert conversation. The Blue Aja, all the Ajas are really secretive. They don't want their, what they're working on, their plans and goals, known by the other Aja members. Women. Right?
You wear a different dress. I'm not telling you my secrets.
So the thing is, though, there were people in the bath who were actual servants there, and if the leader of the Blue Aja comes into the bath and says, "Go away," oh, that might be a tip-off that important conversation is going to happen. Probably pretty easy to put eavesdropping things. And the books are always very clear that they can make wards against listening. They can make like a barrier of air that stops the sound vibrations from travelling and make it so no one can listen. There's no nod to that, right? No mention of that at all. And it's by having this conversation here, they're basically signalling that, oh, here's an important conversation. Maybe someone might want to listen to it.
The political intrigue of this show is oh, I have a conversation with you, don't let anyone know this, and that's it, right? In Game of Thrones, there's this is in like a 5-minute segment. Tyrion needs to know which of the people in the council he can trust. So do you know what he does?
Yeah, I know.
He gets them all together individually, and he says to them, I plan to marry off Princess Marcella to... He tells each of them a different kingdom,
person,
right?
different kingdom.
And so when the queen comes back to him and says, you plan to sell her off to Dawn, and he's like, I know who told her.
Yeah.
And he gets rid of that guy.
I love it.
That's a 5-minute segment.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so this isn't like, it's a small plot point, Barry, but I like that Brandon Sanderson, there's a part where in Stormlight 4, a character needs to try and find a spy, and they try that, the method of feeding out different information.
Yeah, misinformation.
And it doesn't work for a good reason. It's like, oh, clever writers can work with this. There's nothing clever like that in here.
Nothing.
It's so, and the reasons, like Leandrin thinks she's doing something clever by asking something blatantly dumb that's self-evident of the answer, and then the show actually thinking like this is a condemning kind of thing, and the characters look astronomically dumb because the writers don't have the talent to make something intelligent, and so it's just awful. And so these are the things that Wheel of Time has changed from the source material to try and make it more Game of Thrones, to inject politics, inject nudity.
Yeah.
None of it has a point. There's no reason to it at all. The conversation Moraine has with her leader could have happened in so many other covert, interesting settings that you could have... And so, because I've already said, I really feel that nudity in that scene was just to say, look, nudity, aren't we mature and edgy? And
making it as unappealing as possible. But at the same time, right, they built, and this is what you were talking about, I just thought about, they built a set for that. What, they couldn't build, like, the Blue Archer headquarters and have it happen in there?
Or just go to Moraine's room and lock the door and put on a thing and be like, let's have a conversation.
But they're willing to build a set. They've gone to the...
For a bathhouse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they...
That could have been spent on the actual Umland seat or something to make it look better.
This show looks cheap. And there are, like, people have referenced, there's another show called Blood and Bone or something like that on Netflix, or Bone, like...
Black Sails?
No. It's a more recent fantasy show that's been dropped. It has a smaller budget than Wheel of Time and looks way better, almost on every level.
Again, it's the problem-solving thing. You need to make something look authentic. Okay, how do we do that and save money? Peter Jackson did it 20 years ago. They can't.
And so this Wheel of Time was never meant to be Game of Thrones just because it's a different story. It's about characters. It's honestly more wholesome overall and everything like that. Like even some of the notes that Brandon Sanderson gave them back in terms of the early scripts that he saw, and I don't think we should judge his reaction to the scripts based on the episodes that we saw, because I think a lot of changes happened since. But he talked about that I think you're trying to make things too dark, too grimdark, everything like that. He mentioned that all the characters feel like a-holes and everything.
Yeah, whiny a-holes. But here's the thing. They're trying to make things dark. They're trying to make it Game of Thrones by being as politically while being politically correct as possible.
There's nothing edgy at all or challenging for anyone in this show.
Game of Thrones, taken in a modern context now, would be considered very offensive to these people.
Yeah, because guess what? Maybe a different world has different standards in gender equality, and perhaps women might be oppressed. But then seeing a woman push against that and succeed, like Brienne of Tarth, gives her far more, I guess, validity in what she achieves. Yeah. Because it's a harder world, and what a good role model that women might look up to and stuff like that. But no, well, let's not, we have to make sure the world, and they have literally done this, they made certain elements of the Wheel of Time setting reflect modern sensibilities and not the book sensibilities by injecting actual messaging that does not fit in the world. Because they have an agenda, and the actual creators, going back to the very first thing, they think making these changes, having it be more progressive, has somehow objectively made the show better. Yeah. And if you really think it has, you're an ideologue. You're not seeing clearly at all. And you might want to check your own bigotry, because you need to think about, why are you thinking this is objectively improving the show? Does that mean the thing that they're trying to overturn is bad, objectively worse than the alternative? And I've already mentioned about its treatment of the male characters and also straight relationships versus homosexual relationships and stuff like that. There is a very, I feel, troubling, you could almost call it, what's the word that they all say? it's what's that word?
Explain, describe it.
It's
Like problematic.
problematic. There's the you could almost call what they're saying about men's role, what they can do, how strong and capable they should be, as rather problematic.
Trust Nathan to have the word immediately.
Just go to my Twitter feed in my head.
So yeah, it wasn't like Game of Thrones originally, and their attempt to make it more like Game of Thrones made this difference even, because not only are the similarities you're trying to force in makes it worse, now it's further away from Game of Thrones in quality than the original book material was, because the book material is great, right? And then you have these people wishing, hoping, I don't know, is it for validity or something? Like, if our message can be in a show that's as good as Game of Thrones, somehow we
it's just protecting the tribe. It's just protecting their side of things. But, like, do you know why Game of Thrones was, like, the first 4 seasons was so good? Because the guy who wrote the scripts is the guy who wrote the books. And he openly admits, yeah, there's some issues with my books, and so I've corrected them here. Like, for example, in the books, when Tyrion meets Jon Snow for the first time, he does a somersault off a barn. And, you know, dwarves can do that because they've sent a... Like, that's not a joke. They can do that pretty easily, right? Except for Ricky Berwick.
Well, you're right. That would have given me a far different impression of Tyrion. And I'm glad they don't have that in the show.
It's up until season 4. And you see when season 5 rolls around, immediately, everything feels dragged out. Everything's boring. There's nothing engaging about it. Immediately.
Oh, my goodness.
They should have got
the thing is,
Brandy.
We actually saw suggestions from Brandon Sanderson. He's posted some on Reddit, and they didn't listen to him. You have this amazingly talented author who finished off the Wheel of Time series, who you might say is one of the most informed people as to who these characters are and what should they be, and they actually didn't listen to him in a lot of instances.
He's one of the best writers alive right now.
The arrogance to do that is astounding. To actually think their plan, their vision for this show would be better, and it is so bad, it's laughable, that it's actually depressing how bad it is now. Episode 5 and 6 is just... And they really felt that they could write their own story. But, like, from episode 4 to the end, they're making stuff up mostly. Like, episode 4 you could give a pass for because it's referenced to offhand things and it fits in easier. But episode 5 and 6, it's just utter bullcrap. And it's so devastating for a book fan, because we're seeing what they cut, and it wasn't for brevity. It's so they can inject their own story. Yeah. If you wanted to write your own story, write your own crap. Oh, we know you can't do that because it would have sucked from the get-go and you wouldn't have even been able to get it made.
You wouldn't be able to get anyone's eyes on it.
Exactly.
No one would have watched it. They would have seen the trailer and be like, oh, what's this crap?
They know they don't have the talent to make their own thing, so they have to desecrate something else just to get their story seen. But guess what? Now we see your talent because we see what you are making, and it's utter garbage.
And what do? They make completely inoffensive plot lines. They have villains who piss themselves when, you know, anything happens to them. And that's literally a running thing. Star Wars, Cowboy Bebop, it's a running thing they do.
Oh, yeah. So you're talking about Valda when he's...
Valda,
when Valda sees Perrin, he's like, oh, Lord, protect me!
You watch.
You know Valda is a combination of 2 characters from the book. He's supposed to be a Blade Master. Like one of the greatest swordsmen in the world. Yeah.
And he killed like a whole bunch of Aes Sedai. So many. He had all the rings.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, light.
His just yellow eyes. No magic, no power. Oh, light protects me. You have yellow eyes.
Just
and he's
like
injured.
Kylo Ren and the First Order. They've taken over the galaxy. All through the off-screen stuff, they've taken over the galaxy. They're great. And then every time you see them on screen, they're completely incompetent. Yeah, all of them. Every single one of them. Think about Kylo Ren versus Rey. Is there a single time where Kylo Ren beat Rey in a lightsaber fight? No.
They'll say the last one, but Rey ends up killing him.
Which one?
If the last fight in Rise of Skywalker, Rey technically gets defeated because remember he's hitting and she's like, oh, my wrist, it hurt, and so she technically is defeated, but then he gets distracted from Leia dying and then she stabs him.
Yeah.
So he doesn't technically win because they can't let a female character actually lose. She's got to get...
They can't do that. No.
Oh, wow. So, no. Not like Game of Thrones. Don't even try and make a comparison. And in terms of success and interest, I'm interested in it. I'm a book fan. If I was just watching this, I would have given up at episode 5. I was like, no, this is dead to me. We'll only keep watching it so we can keep track of what's happening and also review it for you guys. Because it turns out, like, a lot of the people who are... Because I talked about the people loving the show. Then there are people who are hating the show. One, people who just have standards and want good writing in a show are hating it, obviously. Two, obviously, like fans who, like, when I say love the source material, people say who love the show, say, no, how dare you say I don't love the source material? I've already brought this up, but this is an important kind of objective standard to propose now. It's like, okay, do you actually like some of the changes in the show? I liked what was in the book more than those changes in the book, okay? On an objective scale, that does mean I like the books more than you, because I wanted what was in the books to be in the show, because I like what was in the book so much.
Yeah.
And so anyone say, especially the terrible changes, saying these changes are better than what was in the books, and some people unbelievably are saying the show is even better than the books and that the books are bad. Like, they're that desperate to try and validate the show, they've been attacking the books.
I made that exact argument with people and the same thing happened with Halo. Like, it was a massive argument that unfolded over like 2 years, where it's like, okay, you guys like the new stuff, and the new stuff's completely different, so you must hate the old stuff. And then they started saying, oh, Halo was never good.
Yeah, and I'm not saying necessarily they have to hate the old stuff, but if you prefer the new stuff, and I loved what was in the books, I clearly like the books more than you, that's the objective scale. You can't argue against that, because do you like the changes or not, you know? And
you know it's going to be completely forgotten once it's finished.
This type of show is going to, you know, it's not going to last the test of time at all, okay? Something good, okay, that becomes a cultural kind of, you know, property,
Yeah.
are the things that people want to share. I want my friend to see this, or I want my children, not Game of Thrones, but like the old classic Star Wars, I want my children to see this, to love, you know, Luke Skywalker and his great story and everything. They become generational.
Yeah. Only though, it has to be good from end to end. It has to be good. It has good ending. Like, look at Game of Thrones.
I do admit that. Yeah, I like Game of I was very reluctant to even bother watching Game of Thrones, not only because of the nudity, I felt the violence was too far, but also knowing the ending. It's like,
the ending sucks.
like,
But
why
here's
do
the
I want to
thing.
watch something that just dies on the finish line?
You can
know?
finish at season 6, and it's actually a good conclusion, where it's a bit ambiguous, but it's a good conclusion at the end of season 6.
Well, it's funny actually. There is, so I'm enjoying Stargate again. I've already mentioned I'm rewatching SG1, but Stargate Universe. It's the last Stargate show made. Okay, it got prematurely cancelled. And so there's this episode in the later season of Stargate Universe where there's an alternate kind of timeline where... Do you
Is
know
that the movie Continuum?
No.
Okay.
But it's
Continuum's
in the episode where they find a planet and settle on there, and it's like an alternate timeline. It's like, for me, oh, I knew that cancelled. That's the end of the show. That's the ending of Stargate Universe. It's a good ending, happy. Like, just watch that episode and be done. And it's like, that's a
Halo 3 is
satisfying
the ending for
conclusion.
me. I know the vibe. But what do you call it? What about Atlantis? Atlantis was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed Atlantis. SG won the most. Just the characters, and it's just so much fun. I did enjoy Atlantis, don't get me wrong, but SG1 is better.
Okay.
So, in terms of the fans, yeah, people have standards. People who actually like the books. When I say like the books, yeah, they like them more than the people who are liking this adaptation dumpster fire more. People actually like the books, obviously are hating the show. And there's a bigger fan backlash than people are willing to acknowledge or admit. All right, just have a look at our views.
Yeah.
Like, we've been getting some of the biggest views on Night's Watch than we've ever had. One of the main reasons is we seem to be the only ones actually calling out this bullcrap, like in terms of having an established channel and voicing true concerns and calling out the horrible things. And we're getting views because a lot of people are agreeing with us, and they're needing the catharsis to vent about this.
To not feel
dumpster fire.
insane.
Yeah, there've been. How many comments have we had where people have said, "Thank goodness I found you guys. I thought I was going crazy."
Yeah, they're like, my insanity's now in check. I know I'm not going. Yeah.
Multiple comments of people saying this. They're going around online knowing that this is just a dumpster fire of a show, and they're trying to find a place to vent, express about it, talk about it, and they're seeing all these other people. No one is actually just calling out what's so blatantly obvious. They're like, what's going on?
But
and they find us, and this is another sign of the bigger backlash that people aren't acknowledging, is how well we're doing, because we're just gave the show an honest go and it failed.
It is a recurring thing, though, that when the mainstream calls a certain portion of a population crazy. It's the population that's being called crazy that is correct. Most of the time. Seems to be the case. But hey,
well, no. So, on your point, I can't stand some of the mainstream responses to fan backlash and stuff like we saw in Star Wars. They just hate female protagonists. They accuse,
when you make them, we do.
They accuse people of bigots, but that accusation is some of the most bigoted, hateful things ever. Vilifying people, one, without true evidence, but just because they're being honest about something, and they're just saying, this was the response to Captain Marvel. Like, the guy who played Agent Coulson, he legitimately said the people hating on Captain Marvel was because they hate main female characters.
I'm glad he's dead in Marvel.
What? I can't believe how vile that is. And truly bigoted, right?
I remember watching that movie with my dad, and we both went at the cinema, and my dad, who's very, just wants a good time.
One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet.
Just doesn't criticize things, he goes, huh, that was kind of really bad.
Sorry, I know his dad, and so hearing that come from him would be
I was just disappointed in Marvel, so you know it's bad when not even some average Joe can watch it.
You know who the real hero of Captain Marvel is, right?
A her?
No. A Don.
The Don is the true hero of that movie.
Just wanted to help her out.
Yeah, wanted to give her a ride, and then he got physically assaulted by her.
But that just goes to show you, that's a villain to them. Some guy who's a bit of a douche.
He asked someone to smile for him. Yeah. That's an offence to break his hand and steal his motorcycle. She's legitimately a felon. Like Captain Marvel. A horrible person.
And Nick Fury.
And that's their hero.
And Nick Fury lost his eye because a cat scratched him.
Oh,
in
what a travesty.
What do you call it? In Captain America Winter Soldier, he says, "Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye."
And now we know it was him trying to hug a cat.
Don't trust cats. I was going to say a different word then. Don't trust cats. That's his super secret agent lost his eye to a cat.
God, it's depressing, isn't it? But the thing is, they say that's their response, you know, like these people that hate. And so the Santa Inc. thing, Seth Rogen's response to people hating on his Santa Inc. thing was to call them all white supremacists. Yeah. What a scumbag. Like...
Just take some criticism. Like, it's not that hard.
It's not. I willingly... People call me out in the comments.
Hang on. This is the thing, though. Like, I think if some of these people, like Seth Rogen, like the creators of Wheel of Time, actually realised how talentless they are and how vile individuals they really are, if they truly comprehended it, how could they live with themselves? And so the only way they can live with themselves, live in a bubble, everyone's wrong, I'm fine, you're all bigots and hateful people for hating on my stuff. This is the thing. I can understand that to a level when so much criticism is just being launched at you.
Yeah.
I can understand people needing to shut it off, okay? But the thing is, if it's valid, like, what are you going to do if you're in that situation?
Just laugh. Just laugh.
While
Don't
everything
cry
burns
about it.
around them? Or,
Yeah.
if they could be mature and actually embrace and understand and get on board and try and improve themselves, well, obviously, that's the way to deal with it, because then, one... it would actually stop the hate if you acknowledge the actual problems and say, maybe the thing is though, this is where it does become unfortunate. So many people are too unforgiving, and like when someone actually admits that they did something wrong and they try and change, the nature of the world is to say, you deserve it, die in hell, hope you burn, instead of actually acknowledging them trying. Like, there needs to be more forgiveness in the world. There really does.
There's one, okay, and I hate to sound like, because you always say be charitable, there's one side in particular that refuses to forgive.
I know.
Like, PewDiePie said the N-word and apologised, and I was like, yeah, fair enough. But then there's another side like, Gaslam, destroy him.
Yeah, and he's forever evil.
Yeah.
Like, I can't stand that, right? That is, like... But the thing is, we do need to be better than them.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. I'm not saying burn all these people at the stake.
Yeah, and so it'd be great. And I know there are a lot of people who do forgive people when they try and admit their errors and try and improve and stuff. And hopefully people who get caught in a criticism storm can latch onto the genuine appreciation when they try and change and improve themselves and things. Yeah. So that type of reaction, it's prevalent. It's unfortunate, like the negative reaction. And people have already attacked us here on Night's Watch, accusing us of...
I love it, dude. I love it. Because there was a guy who's like, they keep saying, "Oh, you guys, you don't know what communism is. Like, one's a political system, one's an economic system." Like, yeah, well, it ended up being neither.
Thing
I
is,
thought it was a good one.
we actually have studied some of this stuff. Like,
Well, some of us have.
go read the Gulag Archipelago. Oz has. I mean,
Yeah.
if you really want a good insight on communism, okay.
Written by Solzhenitsyn.
Okay. When you actually go to some of this underlining philosophy and you hear what the thought leaders are saying of these larger
the same.
movements,
It's exactly the same. If not, maybe even worse. Because at least when it was about, with communism, it was just about class systems. Now it's your race. Now it's a genetic thing.
yeah.
And we're not the ones saying it. Conservatives aren't the ones saying it. You guys bring race and everything. We were happy with Martin Luther King's speech. We were happy with 20 years ago.
Well, this is the other thing. Like,
You know?
the accusations that you're bigoted and you hate female characters and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, when something good comes along, say like Arcane, female characters, one of the main leads is obviously a lesbian.
Yeah.
Do we, any of us, had an issue with that? It's a phenomenal show. We loved it.
Yeah.
And it is the utter contradiction, proving all the bigotry that's on the other side as bigotry, they can't handle the criticism. They just jump at, oh, these are bad people who, are criticizing things. Our dislike for the show and our dislike for Moraine being a lesbian isn't that she's a lesbian. It's that the change obviously was politically driven. It changes from the books. It messes up important character arcs and future storylines and everything like that. It fundamentally changed the characters. And also its execution was just really bad as well.
Yeah. But here's the thing. No matter how many times we say that and lay it out, they do not
exactly.
care. They do not listen. So just so people know, we're saying this to the people who don't know all about this stuff.
Yeah. We're not trying to convert the people who are beyond help.
Yeah. You can literally sit there and lay it all out.
And by the
for
way,
them.
we know you're here. Thank you for watching. We have some dedicated hate watchers, people. We want to give a shout out. So our regular fans, we love you too. But this one, we want to give a dedicated shout out to the hate watchers. Thank you so much. Welcome to the Night's Watch. If you're watching our content, welcome to the watch, baby.
Yeah. But
I love it.
But it's just like these people, man. I don't understand
I know
it.
you're there.
I don't understand it. That you can literally.
I wonder what they're thinking now. Is like, oh, but I got this far in the video. I'm caught out. Do I stop watching? But I've already given the view.
They probably will, yeah. But no, seriously, you can lay it all out.
But you've already given us the view. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. Go.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shad. No, but you can lay it all out for them. You can put it in very precise terms and make it simple. Like, here's this, here's this, here's this.
And you know what they say then?
They move the goalposts.
No, they say logical consistency is white supremacy.
Yeah.
We're not kidding. Like using someone's logic in reverse. This was in one of the people criticized has legitimately called that a right-wing tactic.
Not only that,
logical
but the
consistency. Like, I know that it comes from the Smithsonian that actually called what
being polite.
An unbelievable self-own is when they actually say using someone's logic and applying it in different situations to see if it's consistent is a right-wing tactic. It's a legitimate admission that they don't use logical consistency.
Do you see why I fight this culture war, Nathan? Do you see why I'm on this side?
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. And I understand these people because when I was in high school, I was conditioned to be one of these people. I was just like him, man.
You were one, actually.
Back in the day I was. But then 2016 came around and spicy stuff started happening.
Gamergate?
No, not Gamergate. I knew about Gamergate. See, here's how politically uninitiated I was. I was watching the Young Turks at the same time as Carl Benjamin, not understanding that they were completely opposed.
Well, I heard that the Young Turks weren't nearly as bad back in the day.
They were pretty bad.
Were they? See,
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah.
I don't think they changed at all.
Because I thought they were trying to sell themselves as independent, reliable news source, but of course
They're not.
So that's mainly the larger discussion I wanted to have. And rounding it off is that this is the ultimate nail in the coffin, the checkmate thing, is that this show is not going to be picked up or beloved by the larger, mainstream viewing audience. Look at who's talking about it already. And the fact that it is so hated by so many dedicated fans, everything like that, and people who can just objectively see quality. So, the question is, it'll never be beloved as Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings or anything, which is this part is heartbreaking because the books are good enough to be beloved by the world.
Yeah.
And if the show could have been the catalyst to bring it to a larger audience, and if you think the current show is, no, the current show is turning people off the books.
Yeah.
We have had multiple comments of people saying, I was hating this show so much, I thought the books were garbage, I was gonna not even look, but then they saw our reviews and hear us actually talk about the books. We've been able to save some people and put them onto the books of how great they are, but for the larger thing, people, not only are they getting turned off the books, the defenders, the crazies who are just so passionately and blindly loving the show have been ragging out the books to defend it. They've been saying the books are bad. This show is not only an improvement, it's been fixing the books and everything. And they've been there's been actually Wheel of Time Reddit pages, not White Cloaks, we love you guys, but other ones, telling people not to read the books.
But there's this trick, and I've just thought about it, right? This trick that, so like, look at the Amazon Lord of the Rings, right? That's going to be a woke fest. It's going to suck, okay? Look at the trailer for House of the Dragon, the new Game of Thrones prequel, which no one's talking about. That's going to suck, because we can already see the woke stuff in it. Do you want to know why there are some people who still get sucked into this? Because in this woke crap, they will do small little hints of fan service that remind you of the things you loved. And you get little out of that, and that's what you would remember. You know, like the final season of Game of Thrones, they literally said memes that people made up outside of the show in the show.
So,
you know?
One point I do want to bring up on what you're saying here.
Yeah.
People, like, I think you'll disagree with me. I am not yet ready to write off the Amazon Lord of the Rings. Okay.
Why?
Hear me out. Randomly, even though these companies can be horribly agenda-driven, randomly we do get a diamond in the rough from them.
Yeah.
We got Arcane. Netflix didn't produce it. They just published it, all right? But it did come out through Netflix. Arcane did. And Amazon has The Expanse. And The Expanse is actually, I'm really enjoying it. There are some progressive things here and there, but it doesn't overcome the show. It's actually a really fun, enjoyable, engaging sci-fi series, well made.
Okay, but I'm just going off track record.
I know, I know what you're saying, but because I've seen good things come out of these, I did enjoy Invincible. I know you didn't, but
I liked the stuff in it that was
Okay,
good, but
okay.
it was full of SJW stuff that you don't see.
no, we've had debates about this.
Yeah, and you
Maybe
haven't
we
been
need
correct, and I haven't been correct. It's been an ongoing debate.
We might say this for a dedicated breakdown of Invincible between me and Oz, because the review was actually between me and Nathan. We loved it.
I liked it too. I thought it was
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay,
The ending was
okay.
great, but it was full of SJW stuff.
I think it was obviously there, but not full, and nowhere near enough to make me dislike the show.
I didn't dislike the show either.
Cool.
I'm just making it clear.
Okay, but so I feel Invincible is an example of something that was really good, that was made by Amazon, okay? In actual fact, I think I've seen more better media from Amazon than Netflix lately. I mean, well, that's the other thing, because I did enjoy Squid Game on Netflix.
I didn't watch it.
So rarely, there are still, so that's why the writing is on the wall for the Amazon Lord of the Rings. It's really concerning. I'm fearful, I'm worried. I'm hoping, beyond hope, that this could be... I know, look, vain hope, but I am a hopeful person that this could slip through the cracks. They could actually get some half-decent people working on it, and it ends up being good.
Shad, when you climb the mountain of hope,
Okay.
you have farther to fall.
Here's another thing as well. Why, if Lord of the Rings is... this new show is a dumpster fire, it won't have as much of an effect on me as Wheel of Time is.
Lord of the Rings
Because
will have an effect on me.
it's not an adaptation of the same story. They're not retelling the core story of Lord of the Rings. They're trying to do a prequel, right?
They're going to take things and change things. They will. That's what they do.
Well, if they do, I'll be trust me, I'll be upset, especially if they're bad. But see, a Wheel of Time, this is most people's introduction to what Wheel of Time is through this dumpster fire of a show, and a lot of people, and I'd like to get a gauge, because I think the people who are loving the show are trying to inflate and present it as the next Game of Thrones, when I think the actual reaction is far... Like, I believe Amazon hoped this would be as popular as Game of Thrones,
no doubt.
and it is obviously not. Just have a look at how much talk it's generated online, who's actually reviewing it, and are there random channels doing theories about what's going to happen or anything? There is nowhere near the buzz. And objectively, I think Amazon is actually very disappointed with its performance so far. They probably won't say it, but there's already been, I think, one article saying that it's been a bit underwhelming, but then they try and jump through these logical loopholes to justify, no, it's actually doing really good, when it's not. It's not doing nearly as well. This will never become a long-term beloved fantasy TV series. It'll be forgotten.
Yeah.
I'm like, once like I said, if I would have given up already. I wouldn't be continue watching it. I wouldn't bother watching season 2. We probably will review it just because we like punishing ourselves. But I think you guys want to see the dumpster fire of what season 2 is.
Hey, we don't know. Like they've said they've renewed it. They still might cancel it. They also said that they renewed Cowboy Bebop season 2 back.
That's actually they said that season 2 was already greenlit.
So
I think the people who love the show are fighting for it, and that's why they're trying to misrepresent the reaction to it. They're full on just praising it more than what it deserves because they're desperate to get that season 2.
But they can't replicate the money and the interest.
That's true.
All I can do is keep screaming. That's all I can do.
And this is true. I would love this show to be cancelled to stop desecrating the Wheel of Time's legacy because I think it's actively harming. And this is what I was going back to what I was talking about, is that this show is harming what the Wheel of Time is and giving people the wrong impression, and it's really upsetting me, where a dumpster fire Lord of the Rings will never be able to chip or even affect the standard and pedestal that those Lord of the Rings movies are. We've already seen it. Like, did The Hobbit ruin, the Hobbit movies?
Separate thing.
Where they weren't as terrible as this Lord of the Rings show is looking to be. Okay, they were pretty bad. Yet I could see people why they enjoy the Hobbit movies. I was able to enjoy them, trying to turn off my brain, but by the third one it was
Yeah.
But still, even with the Hobbit ones, it has not tarnished how good those films are. And so you can't. That's like a reputation that Lord of the Rings, those films are going to be timeless. Fathers will be showing them to the sons for years upon years.
Yep.
But now Wheel of Time, no. There's a lot of bitterness that's come about because
now there won't be an adaptation.
There won't be a good adaptation probably now. Like,
they're not even going to try.
And this is what the defense people say in Wheel of Time is like, if you get this cancelled, you will never see another adaptation thinking, good. For me, that's my reaction, good, because this is a travesty and a desecration of what Wheel of Time is. I hope it gets cancelled as soon as possible. But there is that sadness that what we could have gotten in a proper, well-made adaptation, and we probably will never get that now.
Well, Shad, when you become the next Disney, you can.
My desire for an adaptation, right, is not so, possessed and unreasonable to the fact that I would just accept crap and something that honestly insults the Wheel of Time just because it's an adaptation. No.
Look, even if they, just went into season 2 with none of this crap, Like, imagine that.
It's ruined for me, right? The crap that they have in season 1, if it's built on such a insulting foundation, if season 2 is built on the chronology and the canon that season 1 establishes, even if it's good, it's validating the crap. And I can't stand it.
Can't build a temple on sand.
Yeah.
Just first episode of season 2 should just be Moraine wakes up.
It's all about.
And goes to the land and goes, we need to go find.
This is what I was saying about how they were going to make Rise of Skywalker after The Last Jedi. It's like the only way they could come back from this dumpster fire is uncanonize it, retcon the whole thing, because anything you build up from this garbage is on the worst foundation, and how difficult would it be to bring it back from that? And of course, they didn't. They made something that I feel is even worse. I've had a good debates with Mauler on EFAB, like, which is worse, Rise of Skywalker or Last Jedi. I think it's Rise of Skywalker.
I agree.
But I get the arguments why, because The Last Jedi set it on such a bad course, and it's so insulting with Luke and everything. But going back to the analogy, again, it was so bad, how could they make anything after that that's going to be redeemable? A hugely talented person might be able to, but look at the talent we're dealing with here.
They're not talented.
The safest thing would have been to retcon it, but now it's sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to reboot this. The thing is, if they rebooted it, they would anger all the crazy, progressive fans. But one, if it's actually good, it would attract a larger audience. All the die-hard fans that are hating this bullcrap will embrace it and just prop it up. And it would actually, because we've actually seen close reboots, and it was the Hulk, where the Norton version of Hulk, basically a reboot. Quickly after, there were some circumstances that they could justify and get away with it, and film is different to TV shows. And so because, but honestly, I would be happy to wait 40 years for a good Wheel of Time thing if that's what it takes, and I would have preferred to have got none of this insult to Wheel of Time, and still waited another 40 years to get something decent and did justice to the source material.
But just imagine when when Brandon Sanderson's books start getting put into TV and movie form.
I have more faith in it because he's got more control over it.
I hope he has complete control over it.
He has reviewed several scripts from Mistborn adaptation, turned them all down.
Good. Mm-hmm. And hey, if you're watching this, Brandy, we love you. I loved your books. It got me back into reading. Please don't make Ham a woman. He was a big guy, you know?
The thing is, because it's Brandon doing it, I trust him as a writer.
I do trust him too, but I pictured the lead singer of Linkin Park.
I would prefer Ham not to change, but I always want things more accurate. The thing is, though, if Brandon is writing it, whatever we're going to get is going to be very good.
Yeah.
And it's the author writing it, so do you think it's going to be respectful to the source material?
It'll improve on the source material.
Probably. There's a chance that it could even be better.
Maybe it's just, I'm sick of the woke stuff, and I see that as woke stuff when... male character
he's clever enough that he could actually possibly make a female version of Ham. He was probably going to change a lot about her to make it just a different character.
Not going to have a wife and kids?
I think it'll have a husband and kids now. And
he
could make it... He's that talented, he could make it work. We know he can.
I see the woke stuff, man. I see the woke stuff.
So, I'm glad that Brandon is trying to have more control over the adaptations and stuff, though... I think there might be some areas there he doesn't have a lot of control, so...
He won't have control over casting. He won't have control over budget. He won't have control over director. Or he might just have control over the script, and even then it can still be ruined. It's a tricky one. That's why you got to hurry up and become a trillionaire and be the next Disney. And I think you can. So, people...
I love your confidence in me, Oz.
No, seriously, you've gotten this far from being just a nerd.
All right, so let's read a couple of comments now. That's our larger discussion about Wheel of Time versus other properties, and I
read some comments?
Yeah.
Okay, let's read some comments.
But I'm glad we got to even compare it to Lord of the Rings, and also
yeah. By the way, these are just comments that I've taken screenshots of, not from any particular video. Okay.
I'm always distrustful.
This is just someone's talking about League of Legends.
Oh, okay.
League of Legends community is great. They give so many good advices on, for example, how to commit suicide, how to uninstall a game, how to take care of your mother's sexual needs. What else do you want? Excellent work.
So, people were trying to warn me about League because it has such a toxic community.
Yeah.
I played Dota. Do you think Dota doesn't have a toxic community? Some of, I don't know which is more, but some of the stuff, I've not only heard and it been abused by other players, but sometimes I get stuck into other players as well when I defend my playing and calling what they're doing stupid and stuff.
There's some very intense LAN parties.
So we've in my local area here, there's a group of us that actually really like Dota, and we have really enjoyed playing larger scale LAN parties. And oh boy, has it been...
But that's
salt is always sprinkled over everyone's...
Love it.
Back when I played Dota with you, I could have used that advice on how to kill myself. That's how I felt. Okay, and here's actually a useful one. Okay.
You must be... Those are comments from Nightly News, not the Wheel of Time comments.
Yeah, I think this is a Wheel of Time one.
Okay.
Iconoclasm. That's the heart of Enlightenment era philosophies that have ultimately mutated into the present day movements. Heroes, tradition, family units, symbols, and language. That's the key ingredient to a culture, and it seems like every 2-bit activist these days is trying to mutate at least one of those, if not all of them.
There's a reason why classic traditional values have survived throughout much of human history, and the family is so important. Men, women working together. These things are not only important, they're essential for us to...
For our survival as a species. And here's one from Reddit, White Cloaks.
Oh, okay.
Okay. While I think it's important that we all pray for, not Bill, Steve, Nathan, Nathan, yeah, sorry. While we should all pray for Nathan and wish a speedy recovery for his overtaxed vocal cords. I think that's something more... Bloody hell, I can barely read. Can you read for me? My eyes just moving too fast.
I think there's something more important we address. Oz's imminent apotheosis. Clearly Oz thrives off of Schadenfreude. And the amount of pure, unadulterated pain and anguish that is generating is off the charts. The combination of these two facts, which are true facts that cannot be disputed, means that we must prepare for the inevitable rise of the upside-down ginger overlord.
I'm not ginger, just my beard.
My beard is also ginger. Thankfully, he has shown himself weak against carbonated drinks, confounded by bottle tops, and wholly dependent on sugary drinks.
I'm not dependent on sugary drinks, you
Might
bigot.
save us all.
Okay. This is a Wheel of Time one because you have a stack of notes there. Do you see you have a stack of notes there? You can tell it's a Wheel of Time because
Oh yeah, I've got all these notes. Oh, yeah. Quote by C.S. Lewis in The Four Loves: "Those who cannot conceive friendship as a substantive love, but only as a disguise or elaboration of Eros betray." Of Eros betray.
No, of Eros betray the fact.
Betray the fact that they have never had a friend.
Eros meaning erot.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just like why people make Sam and Frodo gay.
Yeah. And I'm going to put this in the follow-up for the next episode, but now there's actually a direct quote from the Wheel of Time companion. So this is like a world building, it's got all the information there. And in Moraine, there's a thing, and so this is approved by Robert Jordan, that states explicitly that they're not lesbians. They cuddled up when they were girls in a difficult environment, and there was no male companionship to be found, and they had normal libidos, and so that's what he meant by it. But he explicitly says they're not lesbians.
Yeah.
They're just regular women with regular sex drives in a difficult situation.
Can you read this one? This came from the White Cloak subreddit, and it was probably the most concise explanation of the SJW thing and why it affects Wheel of Time. It's very good.
We'll see, that's a big one. So, since none of you seem to understand why the right links social justice to communism, I will explain what should have been obvious. Communism sought to redistribute capital by seizing the means of production and putting the workers in charge. Social justice, progressivism, seeks to redistribute social capital, and it frequently attempts to do this by seizing the means of cultural production. Wow, this is actually very insightful, and it's absolutely true. This progressive movement is seizing the means of cultural production by trying to co-opt culture. And we look at Wheel of Time, look at Star Wars, look at...
Lord of the Rings, yeah, you called it before.
Lord of the Rings is going that way. But also Ghostbusters, Terminator.
Everything must go. Everything.
They're trying to seize the means of cultural production. There are notable ideological similarities and motivations to these ideas. Both are perversions of justice for multiple reasons, but at their core, especially social justice, are acting out of reification fallacy because... It is reification? Yeah, I think so. Reification fallacy, because they shift point of justice from individuals to groups. Yes.
Yep.
Group identity.
Group identity.
Yeah. And
there are no group rights, only individual rights.
Are you a woman? You must be on our side. You support feminism. You support all these things.
Not just that, but this group of people demands this, even though a lot of them don't.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of women who oppose it. And there's people who say they're feminists who, no, I'm not with the extremists, yet the extremists say they're one of our followers and stuff. Shad pointing out a social movement and its effects on pop culture does not make him the equivalent of an anti-Sarkeesian. Thank you, sir. If you don't know who Sarkeesian is, congratulations.
You win.
This argument presumes that Shad's content is equivalently paranoid. It isn't. And also presumes that was the only thing stupid about Anita's ideas, which were fundamentally irrational in the first place.
So, who's the user? HV51.
Oh, mate.
You're a legend.
What a spot-on
thesis. This was on the Shadowversity Reddit. Because there was people on the Shadowversity Reddit being like, I'm sick of Shad.
And by the way, none of my political views or anything has appeared in Shadowversity recently. In fact, by making Night's Watch, it has helped me divorce any type of political content on Shadowversity more so, because I've always wanted Shadowversity to be apolitical, so anyone who likes swords, weapons, everything can come and enjoy it. Doesn't matter what you believe in, who you are, or anything. If you love swords, come and be a part of it. And I've tried to avoid politics as much as possible, and there's been the occasion where it slipped through because I am who I am. I have my opinions and beliefs, but I kept it to a very low level. But by now making Night's Watch, I can keep it almost outside of Shadowversity completely. And people who are loving Shadowversity and then come over to Night's Watch and see my hot takes and stuff like that are getting all offended when they don't realise that Shadowversity hasn't changed. In fact, it's even less political than it's ever been.
And you haven't changed either, Shad.
Though I do admit, I do enjoy edgy humour. I've always enjoyed edgy humour.
That's why you enjoy me.
But I've been letting some edginess come out on Shadowversity, and there is a big, thing is, though, it's always kind of been there, but it's been very few and far between. There is a big, in fact, an edgy video that we're making, which it's going to be funny.
It's got to go up.
It's always, I haven't changed. This is always a part of me. And in terms of, edgy humour, that is, I do admit, because...
But you have cut things out.
I've cut things out a lot. And the thing is, though, a lot of people have been enjoying just the fun that
Yeah.
we've been having with it and stuff. And so I'm going to have a playlist on Shadiversary called Shad Posting.
Nice.
There's a Facebook group called Shad Posting. And so, yes, I got the inspiration from there because some of these videos, I like go back to medieval archery douche or medieval douche videos, right? I've been doing the S-Lord humor thing for a while, okay? It's not changing. And because sometimes it's fun and stuff. What's this? Shad good, like Shad. Strong words, Oz fluffy, Oz funny, like Oz. Like Scrawny too, good show.
Guess who Scrawny is? Yeah, thank you, Lo. You're a bro. Oh yeah, hey, this was from, I showed you this one the other day.
What's that one?
This is, TV spent so much time focusing on trifling crap, no one is complaining about the massive structural problems of Wheel of Time. And he goes through all the stuff they had to go through. They still barely
there are
got through.
so many problems. And I think
Yeah.
we're going to do a full season recap,
Like
wrap up, because overall, like, I didn't notice this in the first 3 episodes because there were individual episodes and I couldn't see a broad view. But now we're seeing more of the show in contrast.
Yep.
There are some horrible things. Like, for instance, what they've done to Rand, Matt, and Perrin. They've barely had any progression at all. These are supposedly important characters. Like, the episode 5, one of them's like...
No.
There've been barely any progression. They're sidetracking the... like, they dedicated nearly a whole episode on a random water that we don't care about.
Well, I'd say more like 2.5 episodes, 1.5 episodes.
Almost, yeah. I can't believe it. And the also depiction of these male characters, they're so cowardly and pathetic.
Ineffective.
And they're like... All throughout the show, it's you can't have a man save a woman, and Egwene and Nynaeve are just like the most... The books, rightly so, had Egwene play second fiddle because she wasn't... she becomes a really good established character, though it's funny. A lot of people have issues with Egwene because she does questionable things, right? But it builds up to it because obviously the book 1 had a really important focus on the important characters.
Yeah.
But you can't have that, so they'll subvert the entire show. Anyway, we'll have more conversations on a broader discussion.
Okay, last thing I'd say, like, you'd think that he would have shown that he enjoyed the male characters, you know? But apparently he doesn't.
Oh boy, any other comments or... Well, I think, it's been
That's
a good
all of it.
discussion.
Yeah.
Because we also had a good, fun, interesting discussion, there was less comments that we got to, but I still really enjoyed what we got to present as well.
Yeah.
Think about. So, anything else that you guys want to share?
Oh, that stuff's good. If anyone's wondering...
No, it's bad for him.
Tell them.
Don't encourage him.
I just want to tell them what it is, so they know. This is, very...
I don't even want you... Don't promote it. There will people say, oh,
I won't
that
tell them
sounds
the
good.
brand.
I'll give it a
I'm
try.
just telling what it is. This is very concentrated watermelon flavored pre-workout mix full of caffeine. Woo!
It's not good for you, man.
It keeps me awake.
But you're not working out.
It keeps me awake.
All right, thank you for watching, guys. We appreciate you. And as always, stay. Oh, I got mixed up.
Oh.
I screwed that up. I got mixed up between stay on watch and stay watchful.
Pick one.
I can't decide. Which one do you like?
Just say the bloody line.
As always, guys, stay on watch.